Number 11, compensate fuel pressure to altitude changes. Compensate fuel pressure to altitude changes. So the purpose of the diaphragm in most vane type fuel pumps is to compensate the fuel pressures to altitude changes. Compensate the fuel pressures to altitude changes. Number 12, the presence of water. The presence of water. So the primary condition that allows microorganisms to grow in the fuel, in the aircraft fuel tanks, is because of the presence of water. Microorganisms grow in fuel tanks because of the presence of water. Number 13, prevent vapor lock. Prevent vapor lock. So it is desirable that fuel lines have a gentle slope upwards or downwards and not have sharp curves or sharp rises or falls in order to prevent vapor lock. So it is desirable that fuel lines have gentle slopes upward, downwards. They should not have sharp curves or sharp rises because they want to prevent vapor lock. They want to prevent vapor lock. All right, number 14, a positive means of shutting off the fuel to all engines. A positive means of shutting off the fuel to all engines. A positive means of shutting off the fuel to all engines. So the fuel systems of an aircraft certificated in the standard classification must include which of the following? A positive means of shutting off fuel to all engines. A positive means of shutting off fuel to all engines. Number 15, at the lowest point of the fuel system. At the lowest point of the fuel system. So where is the main fuel strainer located in aircraft fuel systems? At the lowest point in the fuel systems. The lowest point in the fuel systems. There's many questions that I've said recently in the last couple that will touch. If you haven't been there, they're in the airframe section as well. So there are some repeat questions, or if you already did the airframe and you're doing power plant right now, you're going to see that, hey, you know what, that question I've already seen. I would pay particular attention to these questions. You're probably going to see them again in a test near you. I don't know, but just in case. All right, so at the lowest point in the fuel system. Number 16, below the wiring and clamp the line securely to the airframe structure. Below the wiring and clamp the line securely to the airframe structure. What are they talking about? Where physical separation of fuel lines and electrical wiring or conduit is impracticable, locate the fuel line below the wiring. We saw that in electrical wiring. Where are you going to run electrical wires? You know, if you to run parallel through next to fuel lines, above them, above the fuel line. So your fuel lines are always going to be on the bottom, below the wiring, and clamps line securely to the airframe structure. You don't want to clamp them to the wiring, clamp it to the airframe structure. These are common sense questions, but you'll realize that you're going to see them again. All right, number 17, it separates air and vapor from the fuel. It separates air and vapor from the fuel. It separates air and vapor from the fuel. So what is the characteristics of a centrifugal type fuel boost pump? A centrifugal type fuel boost pump separates air vapor from fuel. Centrifugal type fuel boost pump separates air and vapor from fuel. Number 18, 150% of the takeoff fuel consumption of the engine. 150% of the takeoff fuel consumption of the engine. So the FARs require that the fuel flow rate for gravity systems, main and reserve, to be at 150% of the takeoff fuel consumption of the engines. The FARs require that the fuel flow rate for gravity systems are at 150% of the takeoff and fuel consumption of the engines. Number 19, to provide a positive flow of fuel to the engine. To provide a positive flow of fuel to the engine. These are fuel boost pumps, are operated to provide a positive flow of fuel to the engine. Fuel boost pumps provide a positive flow of fuel to the engines. Number 20, a sticking fuel pump relief valve. A sticking fuel pump relief valve. So a pilot reports that the fuel pressure fluctuates and exceeds the upper limits whenever the throttle is advanced. The most likely cause of the trouble is a sticking fuel pump relief valve. A sticking fuel pump relief valve. All right? Guys, take a quick quiz, and I'll see you soon.